So this is something that I've been fascinated about for a really long time, but don't fully understand. And I've heard it like manipulated by. This is a lot of qualifying for my number one. Put it as number one. But I've heard it manipulated by people who are kind of on the woo end. There was a movie like What the Bleep Do We Know that this was kind of one of the central constructs of. And the more I've tried to understand it, as I feel like people who actually know what they're talking about understand it, the more confused I get. And that is the observer effect. And, kind of the first time I saw like basically Schrodinger's cat. Like, Edwin Schrodinger had this, what was it? I read a book about him, the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, where he said it was so baffling to him that he created this sort of absurd thought experiment that there is essentially a cat inside of a box. There's a device inside the box that could randomly go off and kill the cat, or it could not. And until you open the box and see the cat either alive or dead, it exists in some sort of superposition where it is both fully alive and fully dead, existing at the same time, and the wave patterns don't collapse and reality isn't decided until there's some sort of outside observation or measurement. They've done something called the double split experiment, where they double slit experiment, where, again, this is a horrible explanation of it, but essentially they shoot particles through these two slits to see if it will leave a certain kind of pattern on a screen behind these two slits. Depending on whether they're measuring the particles or they're not measuring the particles, they behave differently. Now, am I butchering that entirely? And if so, what the heck's going on?
So in Schrodinger's cat specifically,
yeah,
the experiment is you have poison. The poison will be released by a radiation detector. You have a radioactive particle that has a 50-50 chance of decaying in the amount of time the cat is in the box. Okay. So that's how you bring in the quantum element to it. And it's this notion of superposition, where subatomic particles can be in multiple states at once. And in the dual slit experiment, depending on whether there is observation made or not, you either get discrete lines on a piece of film, or you get like gradients as you would get from a wave, or lines as you would get from a particle. The thing with the observer effect, as we understand it today, that you have to remember is it's not as fancy as the word observation applies.
Okay.
Because of the way physics works, observation means particle interaction.
Okay.
So if I view something with my eyes or with a measurement instrument, there has to be a particle that carries information, which means another particle will strike the particle, causing the duality to collapse. See what I mean? And that means like particles are introduced into the box before the photons strike the film in the wave particle duality experiment. It is still super weird.
Yeah, because what some people's probably incorrect or simplistic interpretation is that somehow the consciousness or some sort of like conscious outside observer dictates reality existing. Like I've heard it framed that like basically if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, it probably didn't fall because it probably wasn't there. Like essentially like there's something about conscious observation that is dictating reality happening. Now that seems completely insane to me, but I've heard people sort of make that case when they're trying to describe what's happening on some sort of quantum level.
Yeah, well, if you use an instrument as the observer, it collapses superposition. Yeah. Is a light meter a conscious observer? I don't know.
Yeah.
We're getting really deep in philosophy there.
How high tech is this light meter we're talking
Right. But that's sort of what I mean. Now that said, we've been looking for the edge of what can be put in superposition, because you immediately go, well, you can't put a cat in superposition. It's an interesting thought experiment.
It can't be dead or alive.
Because it's only subatomic particles. But we've done now the wave slit experiment we've done it with atoms and kept atoms in superposition, which that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then we started doing it with molecules and then increasingly large molecules. And so we're finding we can put some pretty big stuff into superposition. So, there is this question of like, forget a tree. 2 asteroids collide in the asteroid belt.
Okay.
Where we know there is probably not a conscious observer.
Yeah.
We know the particles, light leaving that phenomenon does stay in superposition until it's observed. We can run the wave particle experiment with photons that left stars hundreds of millions of years ago.
Yeah.
And they obey the terms of the experiment. So in an odd way, an observer is impacting the behavior of a particle of light that was emitted from a star before human civilization, before hominids appeared on the earth. You see what I mean? Like that gets weird. And this is an interesting and unknown idea in physics that we're still exploring. That's why my number one thing in mind and why we did end up having the same topic was that search for a theory of everything. Things like superposition defy not only our intuitive understanding of the universe, but actually challenge some of our models in physics as well. Like we can mathematically describe superposition. We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And we don't know when it does and does not work.
Yeah, because it's counter to, like you said, just the basic intuition of how things operate, which it's either one thing or it's another thing. Not it's both things at the same time. Until one part of it is measured, then all of a sudden, for some reason, the superposition collapses into a single position. It just seems totally baffling about what's actually going on there.
Yeah, and it's because superposition doesn't have any bearing on human survival.
Yeah.
And all of our senses and all the ways we think and all of our intuition, those are tools that our brains and bodies use to help us survive. And understanding relativity or the standard model or quantum superposition, none of those things help us eat, mate, and survive. And so our intuition is not equipped to deal with them.
So you're telling me understanding it better won't bring the jet ski to me either? Because
I don't think so. There's this great line in, I believe it is Kaiku's book. I don't remember which book it is. The Future of the Mind, maybe? Anyway, he's talks about how intelligence is a predictor for mating success.
Yeah.
And he basically says, hold on, nerds. I'm not talking about book smart. I'm talking about quarterback smart. Yeah. And it's just one of the greatest lines in a nonfiction book I've ever read.
Yeah. We live in a universe full of paradoxes.
Yes. It's no. It's not that you can memorize so many decimal places of pi.
Yeah. It's that you can huck a piece of leather pretty far in the right spot.
Well, but I mean, and make the strategic implications of.
Yeah.
Playing a quarterback is actually remarkably sophisticated, and I hate football, but I get his point.
Well, and two, it's one of the few positions in sport where you're constantly under physical danger, a physical threat. Like if I'm playing basketball and I take a jump shot and I miss, I'm not going to there's no one going to hit me. You know what I mean? If the quarterback holds the ball just a little bit too long or makes the wrong decision, there's physical danger, that he has the threat of violence against him just for making a wrong decision. It is an underappreciated
one. They're also the most normal person on a football field. If a quarterback walks in, you're like, that's a pretty fit guy.
Yeah.
But the rest of the team are
they look like members of the Avengers,
Right.
Yeah. Where Peyton Manning walked, and they even talk like Peyton Manning. It's like you don't even need to be a football fan to know Peyton Manning. He even talks like a dad who lives next door and tucks polos into plaid short. Oh, hey, I'm Peyton Manning.
Right.
Geico.
Right. Just regular guys, and then Thanos and the Hulk are running at you.
So what you're saying is we've discovered that the peak human condition is a good quarterback. I think that's what we can all try to subscribe to.